Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it's notable that Mr. Barthold is the only person brought before this committee on such an important piece of legislation. And his function is to advise the committee, his staff, whenever there is a revenue measure, to tell us how much money it will raise. He has told us this morning he is incapable of commenting on this bill because it is dealing with revenues outside the purview of his office, and it's being dealt with another office. As far as his testimony, it is essentially that he doesn't know how much money will be raised, if any. We can't tell from the nature of this bill whether it is basically a ticket by the Republican majority to add $40 billion more to the federal deficit or not. It is based on the possibility that some future legislation will be passed and some guesstimate by someone other than the normal revenue evaluator of how much money might be raised as a result of that. And of course, this possibility of wishing and hoping that the deficit won't be increased by $40 billion, it's that same type of uncertainty that this legislation adds for the first time in 3 decades to the transit fund. Transit being critical to many poor people getting to their job, to many students getting to their classes, whether it's at Austin Community College or Palo Alto or San Antonio College. It is about many older Americans being able to gain some mobility through public transportation systems. There is a reason why we have a highway trust fund, because there are multi-year projects and there is a need for some certainty in those projects. And it is the same reason for which we have a much smaller allocation and trust fund to provide for multi-year projects on public transportation. I understand that there is a general disdain by our Republican colleagues for programs that have titles that include the word public or social, as in Social Security or public education. But public transit is vital to the economy and to the lives of so many of our American citizens. It is also noteworthy when we talk about the bipartisan history of transportation legislation, and certainly the support for dedicated transit funds has been bipartisan going back to the Reagan years, that this legislation has demonstrated or produced significant bipartisan comment, multi-partisan comment. We hear it condemned this morning by the United States Chamber of Commerce, by the AARP, by the American Society of Civil Engineers, by the American Public Transit Association. I understand even the Republican Club for Growth has raised questions about the wisdom of this legislation. The United States Conference of Mayors, the National League of Cities, multiple organizations right down to Poder in Austin, Texas, citizen groups raising concerns and objections to violating the understanding, the cooperative spirit, the commitment to public transportation and dedicated funds to provide it that has existed over 3 long decades, that is being rejected this morning without any evidence to support it, and really without any witness to testify explaining why this was done. We heard so much about added transparency and public participation that would occur under this new Republican leadership. That has also been rejected with this surprise presentation of this piece of legislation. I think it is a real step backwards in so many areas. It also comes at a time after months of our asking our Republican colleagues to join with us in taking constructive steps to stimulate our economy. What better way to do that than to be building projects that taxpayers can see, like public transit systems, like needed highway projects and loops in San Marcos, Texas, to see those projects built with work that needs to be done by people who need to be working. That could be a part of this legislation, but it is rejected as an approach to get our economy moving and just takes a giant step backward.